ARCS hype is palpable. It's been praised by so many different reviewers, but now as it's actually landing with backers, there are some concerns that are starting to pop up a little bit. Go no further than the BGG rankings. If you kind of scroll down those rankings, you're going to start to see a few, mind you, not so great reviews. There's definitely some critiques there. To add on to that, there's been a couple concerned videos that have popped up as well. And I decided to comb through those reviews just to see if there's any common threads that I can look into. I mean, this is part of a broader, longer term review that I'm doing for ARCS. I made the decision to not play it a handful of times and put out a review. First of all, there's just a ton of those out there right now. I mean, there's not a lot new that I'm going to say about the thing with half a dozen plays like everyone else. I want to explore this thing a little bit deeper because I see that there's potential for that depth. And one of those things or avenues I'm trying to explore, what is the negative in the game? What are normal people on BGG that are getting this game in their hands for the first time? What are their concerns, if any at all? What I did is I went through all of the reviews and I literally copy and pasted every single negative review into ChatGPT. And I asked ChatGPT to synthesize and aggregate the general consensus on concerns. And it was really interesting. There's honestly only a couple concerns, but they're kind of big and they're in some cases pretty legitimate. So my goal in this video is to go through each of these critiques and talk about them a little bit and give my perspective based upon the plays that I've had and where I agree and maybe disagree with some of these critiques. First, and probably the least mentioned, is aesthetic. I don't know that this is a problem at all. It's only a few people, and it's just them not liking the art style. It's not that big of a deal. I personally think the art, as always with all of Kyle Farron's artwork, is absolutely beautiful in my mind, right? Art is subjective. I think Kyle Farron's art is particularly polarizing for some reason. I think these critiques are also the same thing that you'll find for Root, Fort, Ahoy, you know, whatever you might choose. I personally like it, so I'm going to move on from that one pretty quickly. The second thing that pops up a lot is game length, and I actually have some takes here. So in the rule book, it says 30 minutes per player, around 45 minutes per player in your first play. I will say I've been through a decent amount of plays, a handful of plays at this point, and we have not sniffed 30 minutes per play, not even close. I just went through and did a deep dive on all the guild cards. Go ahead and check out that video if you haven't already. And having a better understanding of those cards helped my turns go by so much faster. With that said, my partner is still really hemming and hawing, not really understanding the full decision tree in this game. And those turns absolutely could take a long time. People are saying things like the game is longer than advertised. Turns can take a long time due to the game's systems, encouraging long, detailed turns, among other critiques. But in general, there is a theme, at least, to these extra long turns. And, you know, I'm not going to argue that. This is not a short game, especially if you play the full chapters. We're getting up there close to an hour and 45 minutes. So we're even above the 45-minute new player mark. I think your mileage may vary. It's going to depend on a few different things. It's going to depend on who you're playing with, how many new players or new-ish players you're playing with, obviously, but also just how, even from like the veterans, how many plays they actually have with the game. I totally see this going down in the end. Like the time to play will absolutely be faster. You're going to start to see the paths to accomplish whatever you want to accomplish, which is foreshadowing to something a little bit later. But those paths are going to start to become more and more apparent to you the more you play this game. But if you're playing this game only every once in a while and you're not consistently getting it to the table or even playing multiple games in a shorter time period, it's going to take a while. That's just the nature of the game. Unless, of course, it's a blowout and it's ending before the 5 chapters. Those can go pretty quickly. But if it's a good back and forth battle, it's going to take a while. The next concern, really the next two concerns, are huge. There are a lot of people mentioning this, not only through BGG, I've seen it on Reddit, I've seen it on YouTube. This seems to be for people that the game is missing on one of the two major critiques, and it's just simply the action selection mechanism. You can call it trick taking, which the game describes it as such. It has some DNA, but there's definitely some really big differences, and it's certainly not a trick-taking game. People are saying trick-taking mechanism is limiting and feels like a compromise. Trick-taking limits action selection too much, leading to convoluted mess. Randomness and trick-taking combined make the game very swingy. Actions are limited by cards in hand. The card system is restrictive and annoying in final turns. The central card play mechanism does little to salvage the boring nature of the actions it powers. The trick-taking mini-game for actions and initiative is unpleasant and limiting. Dice and cards make the game swingy and painful due to limited actions. Every hand is a bad hand, leading to frustration and negative feedback. One or two players can get bad hands and be effectively out of the game due to compounding benefits. There is a ton to unpack here. And first off, I will say, not knowing who these people are and their experience with the game and how many plays they've had, I would say a lot of that is actually fairly accurate. But I'll also say it depends. And I know people don't want that answer. They want, is it good or is it bad? Not much in life is black and white. There's always a lot of gray. And I want to explore the gray of that trick-taking mechanism because there's a ton of it. And if you're newer to the game, it might be helpful to describe what this action selection mechanism is, because it is the lifeblood of what you do. Everything in the game comes through playing a card. There's always a lead player. The lead player leads with a certain action card. That action card has a suit and it has multiple actions connected to it. Not all the actions, a limited number of them that they can perform. The suit is important like other must-follow trick-taking games. And in this case, it's not technically must-follow, but if you want the biggest benefit, you must follow it. The next player needs to play a higher card of the same suit in order to get the full benefit of the card. There is flexibility built into the system. You can play a card upside down and simply copy the card that was played as lead. That becomes really important when you don't have one of those cards and you want to do one of those actions. The other thing you can do is pivot, which is you just play any card you want. And instead of getting the full benefit of the card, you can only take one action. You see, each one of these cards have pips on them. If you are playing a lead card or you've surpassed in the correct suit, you get to do number of actions equal to the pips. Otherwise, it's one action. So if you're copying or pivoting, it feels really, really punishing because you can only do one thing. And if you're leading or surpassing, you're doing anywhere from like 2 to 4 actions. And that is a lot in the game relative to the one action on the people that are having to compromise to either play the copy card or the pivot card. The meta game within the game that probably frustrates people a lot is this idea of initiative. The person that can lead the next trick or round, essentially. So if you've surpassed the lead card, you get to take initiative. Players also have another option. Once again, this is built-in flexibility to the system to play an extra card next to their action card to seize the initiative. That is incredibly important because you can lead suit next time and get the maximum benefit of that card that you're playing. It's also important because there are goals in this game called ambitions. Those ambitions are only scored if you declare them, and you can only declare them if the card you lead with has that ambition symbol on them, and you have to be leader. Getting lead in this game or taking initiative or seizing initiative or surpassing to get initiative is the cornerstone of what makes this game tick. And while I mentioned there's a lot of flexibility in there, right? Like there's a way to accomplish nearly anything you want. There are some dynamics that are really frustrating people right now. And first and foremost, if you surpass, typically you're playing a higher card, which already naturally has less pips. The lower the value on the card, the more pips or actions you can take. So naturally you're playing a higher card and you're doing less things than the people that lead. That's not the problem. The difference between 1 and 2 actions is pretty big. The difference between taking 1 action and 4 actions is absolutely enormous. So if you can't get a hold of initiative and you're stuck basically doing 1 action every single turn, you're going to get absolutely demolished. However, the tricky part is if you seize it and you play that extra card, that means you have 1 less card for the entire chapter. And you are essentially handing that initiative right back to somebody the moment you can't play a card and they can. So it's really only a temporary seizure. And that leads to kind of a lot of bad feelings in some instances, especially early on in your journey with ARCS. And this is where the idea of having a bad hand that can ruin your entire game is coming from. I'm hearing that a ton. I'm hearing that in videos and reviews alike, that a bad hand can make a huge difference in your game, which is true. It actually can. But it doesn't mean there's ways to mitigate that bad hand or pivot your strategy. One way you can get a bad hand is you simply don't get any of the cards that you need, meaning there's a certain suit you need that has a certain action to it, and you just don't get any of them. And that means you're blocked from that action using your action cards unless somebody else plays another one of those cards and you copy it. But you're definitely blocked from getting the full benefit if you're leading and playing a card with 2 to 4 pips on it. It can be damaging to what you hoped your strategy would be going into the chapter. I mean, what if you've seen that the Warlord ambition has been declared and all you want to do is battle other people to take trophies to be able to score that ambition? But all you got was mobilization and administration cards. There's no aggression cards whatsoever. You're screwed, right? In this instance, a new player might not think about some of the alternate ways you can go about things. First and foremost, you can tax weapon planets. See, each planet has a resource type, and if you go and tax that planet, you get that resource. Where weapons come in handy are you can use them in your prelude to put on top of an action card, and now you can use any of those pips as battling. Or maybe there's none available and you need to pivot your strategy to go and build on a weapon planet, or maybe even take control of somebody else's weapon planet by putting more ships into their space than they have. A player might decide that that just seems too hard, and maybe they want to pivot to a captive strategy and declare that as one of the ambitions and tax planets with relics to help them to secure the card after they've already influenced on these cards. There is a path. In that instance where you saw an early Warlord ambition declared, you really want to participate in it. You don't have anything at your disposal. There's a path to possibly go and get some of those weapon resources to actually use in battle, or just pivot and do something completely different. Another way you can get a bad hand is when you've invested in a particular ambition, maybe the chapter before, and you're really hoping in those 6 cards you are going to get the right symbol to declare the right ambition. You see, in the bottom of all of these cards, they have symbols, and when you lead with one, you can only declare the ambition that's on that card. That makes things a little tricky sometimes because you are totally handicapped if you do not have that symbol. First, there's a few guild cards that will help you get around that. That's something to pay attention to in the early game, but I get it. There's only, 3 to 5, depending on player account, that are sitting out there at any given time. The thing might not be out there to help you declare what you want. It is totally acceptable to look at the cards you have, look at the ambitions that you could possibly declare, and try to work out the puzzle to go and scrape up some points. Go and get maybe a late ambition declared in something that you have a chance at and go all in on it. Every chapter isn't going to be an overwhelming win. It just can't. There's just things pop up. And even in your plan B or your pivoted strategy in a particular chapter, someone else can completely intervene. That's part of the game, but there's always a path to something. And I know there's going to be people out there that have played a game where they just don't see a path. Depending on the cards you got, there's no way past it. And in fact, I read an account where they got 6 of the same exact card the other day. Maybe that helps you. Maybe that doesn't. I don't know. I mean, you could technically run the table. But the point is that sometimes the cards you're dealt just aren't going to be great for you right then and there. Really, it's about risk mitigation. It's about mitigating the other player's points, possibly, maybe spoiling their plans by going and raiding and stealing their stuff. There's always a path to go and make a difference in the game. The other type of bad hand isn't necessarily apparent right out of the gates. You might not have initiative, and the cards that are playing are never ones in which you could surpass to take the lead. You're then forced to seize initiative by spending an extra card, and we already discussed how that puts you back. This essentially for me is one of the absolute toughest decisions in the game. Are you going to relegate yourself to basically getting one action every time by either pivoting or copying? Or are you going to seize that initiative and just give up actions and then initiative again the next round, kind of compounding on your misery? There's no sugarcoating this one. This is a tough decision, and it's absolutely happened to me more than a handful of times. This is, again, where the game asks you to pivot strategy and try to do your best with what you have. I mean, the moral of the story here is many of the hands you get are going to be imperfect. Some of them are going to be downright awful, and very few of them are going to be sent from God. It's not a game of perfect information and perfect setup every time and setting you up to succeed. This isn't a multiplayer solitaire game. This is a chaotic battle in space. So, this mechanism does replicate that chaos in the form of these 6 cards that you get dealt. I found in those situations where it feels like all odds are against me, but I do start to see a path or maybe even a puzzle that can be solved to either scrape by a few points or even interfere in somebody else's plans. When I'm successful there, it feels so much better than when the game gives me the perfect cards at the perfect time that just allows me to roll over an opponent. That feeling of fighting back in this game and solving the puzzle with the tools that have been afforded is just a glorious feeling. It's not to say that it does feel awful when you're sitting there playing card after card for one action at a time, and somebody else at the table is always playing the 2, 3, or 4 actions at a time. You feel like they're getting so much done, or there's that ambition you are absolutely going to clean up on, but you just cannot declare it to save your life. Those do feel bad, With great elation, you also have to have the counterbalance to that. There's some absolute feel bad moments in this game. Speaking of feel bad moments, this is when we get into the ultimate feel bad moment for some people, which is the take that nature of this game. So people have said the game feels like a constant competition to step on each other's feet until someone wins. Everything in the game is intentionally scarce, requiring conflict to capture and score pieces. Everything owned in this game is transient and easily stolen. The game's unrelenting focus on confrontation puts off many players. Combat and resource stealing feels arbitrary and frustrating due to the lack of player agency. Hard work can be stolen by a single card action, making the point gap huge. And picking on an already down player is rewarded. Those are only a few of the comments that are related to the take that constant contact in this game. Constant confrontation, resource scarcity is an absolute fact. There's no sugarcoat in it. There's no making you feel better about it. There's no like, oh no, don't worry, but there's this. No, it is a game of full contact. It is a game where you are in somebody's face trying to impose your will as much as possible. There's no getting around it. And it's only a criticism if you don't like that sort of thing. And I absolutely recognize that is totally the case. If you're trying to convince yourself that ARCS might be the leader game for you and you just don't like that part in games, I look somewhere else. I mean, this game is not for everyone. The notions that I do want to address here a little bit are everything owned in the game is transient and easily stolen. Combat and resource stealing feel arbitrary and frustrating due to the lack of player agency. Hard work can be stolen by a single card action, making the point gap huge. Mind you, conflict is a major way to score points in this game. Warlord, you need trophies. You get trophies by defeating other ships and buildings. Tyrant, you need captives. You get captives by securing a card that somebody else really, really wanted. So it's in the context of the game. The take that nature, the battling, the things in which typically feel pretty bad in games. The context is points. The context is winning the game. It's not just screwing somebody for the sake of doing it or foiling their plans, which there is definitely part of that. This game does a really great job of rewarding you specifically with a win if you can do it enough times and get that ambition declared at the right time. The notion that everything is easily stolen is partially true. See, raid dice are incredibly risky. Raid dice damage a lot. And if you roll an intercept, you get damaged the number of times the number of defending ships that you're going up against. So there is agency there. You just didn't think about it soon enough. If you have something that you don't want attacked, you can defend it by just putting healthy ships in that area, because the moment they try to attack you and try to steal your stuff, they're going to get hit really hard on those intercepts. And those intercepts basically get rolled every single time. And that is your passive defense. No, you as a defender aren't actually doing anything on the turn, but decisions that you've made leading up to that battle moment before somebody steals all of your stuff, that leads to whether they can or not. Because guess what? If you do enough damage and knock out their ships, they can't raid you. They have to have ships ready to actually raid. The other part is they can only raid where there is a building, so they can't do this absolutely anywhere. So that is yet another condition for them to be able to raid and steal your stuff. And in general, unless they're rolling the much less dangerous skirmish dice, they are taking damage. They're just going to happen. So there's no going in and easily damaging or easily battling. When you decide to battle, it is a cost benefit decision. If you want to have low odds of actually doing any damage, you roll a skirmish dice and then you move on, and they're not going to do much anyways. But if you really want the chance at major damage or to raid and steal all of their stuff, you're taking on a really big burden. Like, there could be a ton of damage that hits you. And by the way, it hits you first in battle. The defender is the one that actually hits first. So you actually have to get through that first volley of hits, like I said, before you can raid. Yes, and it is true. Huge batches of points can appear out of nowhere and somebody all of a sudden jump the lead. That's true. There's no way around that. But just as fast or even faster can that lead evaporate. And I say even faster because as the game goes on, the points related to the ambitions escalate. You flip the little tokens and they're worth more and more points. And then on top of that, you can really focus in on building. If you get all of your cities built, you're scoring an extra 5 points per ambition 1. So those points escalate incredibly quickly. There are tons of stories that I've heard where people just feel, especially in like a 2-player game, where people feel completely disheartened. Someone gets to what is perceived as a really huge lead and they can't see the forest through the trees. They seize up and they think there's nothing I can do. I have no agency over my turns. My cards absolutely suck. The ambitions that are being declared aren't anything I can win with, and really give up. And I can absolutely see, especially early on, how that happens. When you don't understand how this game actually works and how to accomplish different things in the game, it can appear really, really tough. But like in the example I gave earlier, where you get cards that aren't at all related to the ambition that's been declared and what you really wanted to do this turn, there's always a way to pivot out of that strategy and go do something else. Granted, a good player will also pivot from their strategy and maybe start to block you, but that's the beauty in the game. The beauty in the game is that the game state is always changing. This isn't a worker placement Euro where all you have to worry about is somebody taking your spot first. The challenges and the roadblocks are the game. And at the end of the day, every single thing I read comes down to either personal preference, and you should probably know if you like a take that game in the first place. I mean, this is space battle. But a lot of it comes down to not understanding the systems that, granted, are hard to fully wrap your head around. And this is the type of game that really needs a lot of plays to appreciate. And that's one of the reasons I didn't lead with a review. That's why I haven't put out a review yet. And that's why I'm not going to put out a review anytime soon. This game has to marinate, for better or for worse. I honestly don't know. I'm guessing for better. I'm guessing the layers of the onion will continue to be peeled back and you'll continue to see a really beautiful design, but it might not be. I'm just saying knee-jerk reactions on a lot of games sometimes are fine. You can probably get an idea on what a game is after a couple plays. But then there's other games out there that just really need commitment. And it's absolutely okay if that's not for you. Like, if you aren't intrigued by the systems in the beginning, like if you took a big loss and there wasn't any redeeming parts of that game, it's probably never going to be for you. But if you went through the game and there's some interesting systems and you kind of look back and see that there were some decisions you could have made differently that would have changed the outcome of the game, that's what's really exciting for me. And that's what I see. And even in the games that I've lost in, and actually I've lost in a lot of them, but I come out encouraged after every single game because I can look back and say, there was a decision I could have made earlier that would have stopped her. The question is, did I always have the right information to have made that decision? There are instances where maybe I said I could have made a different decision to make the game much, much closer. There might not have always been a decision for a win, but I think that's okay. In a game like this, it's about learning. It's about learning your opponents and learning the systems of the game. It's just not going to be for everybody whatsoever. And it's just a game that needs a commitment. I guess before you go and get ARCS, you ask yourself, are you ready to commit to this system for a good handful of plays to really see it through? Or are you the type that if, one game, if it's not clicking for you, you're going to move on? ARCS, you're gonna probably have a tough time with. If there are any big critiques that you've had that I didn't kind of mine up through the BGG comments, throw them in the comments. I'd love to answer and discuss, debate, so on and so forth. If you've made it this far, I really, really appreciate it. Stick here for more ARCS coverage. I'm not done with it yet. Like I said, this is going to be a longer term series. I will be doing other stuff intermittently as well, but it's just a game I'm focusing on right now. And with all of that said, have a great day.